Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission here is, well, it's pretty simple. We take these complex, often hidden sources, we strip away all the noise, and we deliver the essential knowledge you really need to be informed.
And today we are going deep. We're not just looking at some old social club.
No.
We are attempting to pierce the veil of what our sources claim is a massive, intentional, and foundational deception.
Right at the very heart of the world's most famous or infamous secret society, Freemasonry.
That's right. And look, the source material we have it's powerful. We're talking direct testimonials, detailed analyses from former high-ranking members.
People who were on the inside.
The adepts themselves,
Yeah.
the ones who are actually privy to the most guarded doctrines. And the core claim, which is frankly just astonishing, is that while this organization promises light...
That's the whole brand, right? The
Right.
search for light.
Exactly. But the path is deliberately obscured for, the vast majority of its own members. They are sincerely searching for truth, but what they're being fed are false interpretations.
So we're really talking of a central contradiction here. You have a system that on the surface claims to be about moral improvement, geometry, brotherly love,
All very noble things.
but which at its highest levels is, according to these sources, demonstrably built on pagan mystery religions, on occultism, and on the systematic denial of civil law and established religion.
And just to give you a taste of how deep we're going to go, we are going to meticulously unpack some bombshells.
Like the ancient Egyptian roots of the Master Mason legend. It's a direct parallel to the myth of Osiris and Isis, and Masonic authorities themselves actually admit it.
We're going to break down the hidden phallic symbolism that's disguised as, moral geometry, the famous square and compass representing generative sexual principles.
And the oaths. We have to talk about the grotesque, unbreakable blood oaths. They're sworn under threat of, frankly, medieval violence, and they require members to commit perjury to protect a brother.
And maybe the most unsettling part for modern society, the documented network of influence, how it systematically impacts careers, promotions, and even the fairness of our judicial system.
This is a deep dive into the architecture of secrecy itself and the real cost of that hidden hand. So let's jump in.
I think we have to start by grounding this in the real world. Because, the rituals are fascinating, they're bizarre.
Oh, absolutely.
But the real power of a system like this lies in its ability to affect the everyday lives and careers of people, both members and non-members.
Right.
We're looking at sources that detail the systemic influence within major power structures, specifically the military and large organizations.
This is where it really stops being about ancient symbols and starts being a conspiracy with practical, tangible effects.
Yeah.
Our source, he recounts observing this network in action very early in his life.
During World War II.
During World War II, in the military. He had a superior ROTC background, 4 years of university training. He fully expected to be selected for officer candidate school. It was, the logical next step.
And he started noticing something.
He did. He noted early on that many officers, especially those in positions of real authority, were openly wearing their Masonic rings.
That visibility is so key, isn't it? The rings aren't just, a piece of jewelry.
No, they're a signal.
They're a signal. They communicate access, loyalty, a whole hidden hierarchy to those who know what to look for.
So the selection for officer candidate school comes around, and despite his stellar background, he's overlooked.
And the two men who were selected from his unit?
Both Masons.
Yeah.
At the time, he said he was just baffled. He couldn't make sense of it. It was only later he realized that the selection wasn't based solely on merit or background.
It was based on belonging.
Exactly. And this wasn't just a one-off thing. The system seemed to follow him right into his civilian life, into his career. He eventually joined the organization himself, started climbing the ranks.
He reached the 32nd degree in the Scottish Rite.
And that's when the influence became, well, undeniable. It just confirmed everything he'd suspected back in the military.
Yes, this promotion anomaly he describes it's a textbook example of a hidden vetting system. He talks about a situation where the director of his department is urging him to take an exam for a position he felt, in his own words, completely unqualified for.
Which is already a red flag, right?
Yeah.
Why would your boss push you for a job you're not ready for? Unless, of course, the actual qualifications are secondary.
Secondary to something else. So he goes to take this exam. He's expecting a highly competitive environment, a room full of qualified people.
But instead,
He finds only 2 other people in the room, and he describes the test questions as amazingly simple.
suggesting they weren't designed to actually screen for competence in the job.
Not at all. It was for something else. He said he finished quickly and just sat there watching the other two men continue to struggle.
And here's the part that just removes all doubt. The punchline.
The punchline. The moment he leaves the exam room, the director is just waiting for him. The ink on the paper was, as he says, barely dry.
Meaning the results were instant, or, more likely, completely irrelevant.
The director shakes his hand and says, "Congratulations, Jim, you got the promotion. You were the only one who knew all the answers."
That speed just confirms it was all predetermined. It suggests that reaching the 32nd degree wasn't just a ceremonial thing. It was a signal to the network that he was vetted, he was trustworthy.
And that he'd earned his place within that local echelon of influence. The test was just a formality, a piece of theater, to justify a decision that had already been made behind closed doors.
And that's how the hidden hand operates. It places its own members into these positions of power, ensuring loyalty and access across all these different sectors of society.
What's so fascinating about that story is how it connects the real-world, operational side of the conspiracy right back to that initial promise of light.
How so?
Well, if the organization is truly built on merit and virtue, why does its external structure consistently favor the internal network? It points to a foundational deception.
Right.
And that misdirection begins the very moment a candidate steps into the lodge for the first
The
time.
moment he's hoodwinked. Literally blindfolded.
Exactly. Why would you start a quest for enlightenment by physically and symbolically blinding the seeker?
It seems like a complete contradiction.
It is. It symbolizes that the candidate is stepping away from what they call the profane world and into a world of secrets. But more importantly, it symbolizes his own lack of true sight about the real purpose of the organization. The source is absolutely explicit about this.
What does it say?
It says the candidate is intentionally misled by false interpretations in those first 3 blue degrees.
So the average member, the guy in the Blue Lodge, he thinks he's learning the truth.
He thinks he's getting the real deal. But what he's being given are surface-level explanations, moral platitudes, while the actual deeper and often occult meanings are, and I'm quoting here, reserved for the adepts, the princes of Masonry.
The guys who reached the 32nd or 33rd degree.
The ones at the top. So the deception is baked right into the very structure of the system. You spend years, you spend a lot of money seeking this promised light.
Only to find out you were walking on a completely different path the whole time. A decoy path.
And this deception is particularly strong when it comes to the organization's spiritual foundation.
Absolutely. The Bible is right there on the altar. It's presented to the candidate as the rule and guide.
The worshipful master literally instructs the initiate that the Holy Bible is his guide to faith and practice. So naturally, the Blue Lodge Mason is led to believe that the craft is founded on Judeo-Christian principles, maybe with, a touch of universalism.
But the authoritative Masonic texts, the books that the adepts are told to consult, they just completely dismantle that entire facade.
When you look at what their own philosophical authorities teach, they state it directly. Blue Lodge Masonry has nothing whatever to do with the Bible.
Wow.
It is not founded on the Bible, for if it was, it would not be Masonry, it would be something else.
That statement is just.
Yeah.
It's explosive. It completely negates the primary truth that's presented to the majority of the members.
It does, and it forces the question, if the Bible is dismissed, then what is the true source of this promised light?
And the adepts confirm it's occult and mystical.
Which is where we have to introduce the Kabbalah. Now, many of you listening have probably heard the term, but it's crucial to understand what this text actually represents.
And why its adoption by Freemasonry confirms the occult nature of the organization.
The Kabbalah is defined by our source as a medieval book of mysticism, magic, and theosophy. It's an interpretation of Jewish scripture that ventures deep into esoteric cosmology, and historically it was often consulted by sorcerers.
And the connection to Masonry isn't just speculation.
Not at all. Albert Pike, who is arguably the most influential figure in American Masonry, the man who wrote Morals and Dogma, he confirms that the true search after light in Masonry leads us directly back, as you see, to the Kabbalah.
So there it is. They use the Bible as the decoy for the public and for the lower degree members. But the true wisdom, the supposed secret of the cosmos they're all seeking, it comes from a book dedicated to Gnosticism, to esoteric hierarchies, and to practical magic.
It confirms the entire system operates on Gnostic principles. The idea that salvation or enlightenment comes through hidden, secret knowledge gnosis, not through divine revelation or faith.
And that Gnostic perspective then dictates how they treat all religious texts, including the Bible.
Right. Pike confirms that the literal interpretation of the Bible is suitable for the vulgar only.
Go vulgar.
His words, meaning the uninitiated, the ignorant masses. The real hidden truth, the occult key, is necessary for the adepts. They believe they have to search for the concealed, deeper meaning within Scripture, which they believe aligns with these Kabbalistic principles.
It's a remarkable intellectual bait and switch. You walk in the door seeking divine truth, and the system slowly, degree by degree, guides you toward medieval mysticism instead.
And a deception this profound has to be protected. And that protection is enforced through oaths that are far from benign.
Which brings us to a core revelation of how this system maintains its secrecy. It's through the administration of these blood oaths, bound by the most serious, grotesque penalties you can imagine.
This is not like signing an NDA for a tech company. This is ritualistic self-cursing.
Let's get specific. Let's detail the exact penalties sworn in the Blue Lodge, those initial 3 degrees that every single Master Mason has to pass through. These are the threats of violence that bind the secrets of the craft.
Okay, so in the Fellowcraft degree, that's the 2nd degree, the initiate binds himself under no less a penalty.
And the language is so specific.
Very specific. Than that of having my left breast torn open, my heart plucked out and given to the beasts of the field and fowls of the air as a prey.
So the public exposure and consumption of the heart, the organ of affection and loyalty, it's incredibly symbolic.
And the penalties escalate significantly for the Master Mason, the 3rd degree. This is the degree most Masons get to, and they believe it's the pinnacle of the organization.
And what's the oath there?
The Master Mason binds himself under the penalty of having his body severed in twain, my bowels taken out and burned to ashes, the ashes scattered to the 4 winds of heaven.
So not just death.
Not just death. The oath continues that there should be no more remembrance among men and Masons forever of so vile a wretch as I should be.
It's essential to analyze that language. Severed in twain is a medieval execution, usually for treason. But the crucial part is the complete erasure of memory.
Total oblivion, the ashes scattered to the 4 winds so there's no more remembrance.
Mm-hmm.
This oath doesn't just promise death, it promises the destruction of your legacy, your very identity. It underscores that the secrets must be guarded more severely than your own life.
Now let's shift to the shrine. The ancient Arabic order of the nobles of the mystic shrine. These are the guys in the funny hats, the ones people see as the fun, charitable party boys of Masonry.
Right, but their rituals include what is perhaps the most shocking oath of all because of its syncretistic nature and the extreme violence promise.
A shrine oath is sworn on an altar, but on the Quran,
Right.
which right away confirms the pluralistic, non-Christian foundation of the higher degrees.
And the initiate binds himself under the threat of having his eyeballs pierced to the center with a sharp 3-edged blade.
And the oath is explicitly sworn in the name of a non-Christian deity.
Allah, the god of Arab, Muslim, and Mohammedan, the god of our fathers.
Which raises immediate red flags about the true theological allegiance of the organization. It's not some generic universal god. It's a specifically Islamic invocation mixed with occult tradition. Again, it shows the system's foundation is fundamentally syncretistic. It's just pulling from various pagan and non-Christian sources.
And this internal law, which is bound by these horrific penalties, it dictates behavior far beyond the lodge room. It creates this inner morality that often conflicts violently with external civil law.
Which brings us to a critical truth check on Masonic morality itself. If a Mason's oath conflicts with being honest in a court of law, what does their morality require?
The obligation demands loyalty to the brother above all else, even if that means committing perjury.
They actually say that.
The source quotes the instruction given to Masons directly. If you're summoned as a witness against a brother, you must always be sure to shield him. And then comes the chilling justification. It may be perjury to do this, it is true, but you're keeping your obligations.
So the system actively sanctions lying under oath to protect a member. It places the internal brotherhood above the justice system of the society it exists in. That reveals a profound separation from the norms of civil and moral society. The secret vow transcends public legal obligation.
And this deception extends to protecting the very rituals we're talking about today. New Masons are instructed that if a profane person, a non-Mason, asks about the initiation, like if they were blindfolded or had a rope around their neck,
What are they supposed to say?
you must conceal. Hence, of course, you must deliberately lie about it. It is part of your obligation.
Wow.
The suppression of truth isn't a byproduct of the system. It's the fundamental mechanism required for its survival.
And if that wasn't enough to expose the deceit, the adepts reserve the most fundamental, shocking truth for the highest degrees. that the core foundation of their symbolism isn't geometry or morality at all.
No. It's ancient phallic and sun worship.
This is where that Kabbalistic foundation really shows its colors, isn't it? It's reviving the fertility and sun cults of Babylon, Greece, and Egypt.
Absolutely. When a Blue Lodge Mason sees the symbols, he sees virtue. When an adept looks at the very same symbols, he sees sexual and generative power.
Let's take the most iconic one, the square and compass. The rank-and-file member is told the square means dealing honestly with others, and the compass means controlling your lower passions.
A very sanitized moral lesson.
But the true meaning, the one revealed in texts like Pike's Morals and Dogma, is entirely sexual and generative.
Completely. The square represents the female generative principle, the passive earth. The compass represents the male active generative principle, the sun or the heavens.
And when you see them positioned together, with the compass often resting on top of the square,
it symbolizes the male principle impregnating the passive female earth. It is a doctrine straight out of ancient fertility cults, just disguised by moral language.
What about the letter G, the one you see in the center of the lodge? For the Blue Lodge Mason, that stands for God, or maybe geometry.
Right, that's the public story.
What does it actually stand for, according to the adepts?
The G truly represents the generative principle. In other words, the worshipped phallus.
You're kidding me.
It is the representation of the sun god Osiris, and its earthly meaning is the sacred male organ. This connection is reinforced because it's equivalent to the Hebrew letter Yod, which Pike himself confirms represents the image of the Kabbalistic phallus. The symbolism is dense, it's consistent, and it's deliberately hidden from the members who think they're there to learn about geometry.
So the foundation of the organization isn't the benevolent deity the members imagine. It's the generative power of the cosmos, which in ancient paganism was equated with the worshipped phallus and the cycles of the sun. This isn't abstract philosophy, it's physical fertility worship.
And this profane symbolism is even embedded in the physical ritual itself. During the very first initiation for the entered apprentice, the candidate is commanded to stand in this really awkward position.
Right, with the heel of one foot to the hollow of the other.
That specific, unnatural stance forms the Tau cross.
And the Tau cross is
a well-documented ancient phallic symbol associated with Egyptian and other fertility cults. The source stresses this is no coincidence.
And what's more, the command given to the candidate at that exact moment, stand erect, is noted to carry obvious symbolic meaning.
The entire ritualistic positioning, hidden under the guise of learning how to properly stand as a Mason, is just reinforcing this deep underlying doctrine of phallic worship.
It's a system of coded messages. Only the initiated adepts know the language, which allows them to participate fully in what they know is a revival of ancient pagan cults, while the rank and file honestly believes they're just performing moral allegories.
And now we arrive at the most crucial point in the entire Blue Lodge journey, the heart of the craft, the Master Mason degree. This is where we have to run our truth meter segment on the Egyptian connection, because it demonstrates conclusively that the central drama of Masonry is ripped directly from pagan mythology.
The legend of Hiram Abiff. It is everything to a Master Mason. The initiate literally takes on the role of Hiram, the supposed master builder of Solomon's temple,
who is murdered by 3 jealous fellow craft masons, Jubela, Jubelo, and Jubilum, because he refuses to give them the master word.
And the ritual culminates in the initiate's symbolic death and then his raising to become a Master Mason.
Now, Masons are typically taught, this is a historical fact, a tragic episode tied to the Old Testament. But if we compare the Hiram myth to the much older Egyptian legend of Osiris and Isis, the parallels are, well, they're not coincidental. They are structural and undeniable.
Let's lay them out side by side. First, in both stories, you have a virtuous leader who is murdered by a jealous brother or a rival. Typhon kills Osiris. Jubilum and his colleagues kill Hiram.
Second, in both stories, there are 2 separate, ultimately unsuccessful searches for the complete body.
Third, both bodies are eventually marked by the symbol of immortality, the sprig of acacia.
Fourth, and this is philosophically critical, both murders result in the loss of a precious thing. In the Hiram legend, the loss is the master word, the secret to eternal life and divine knowledge.
And in the Osiris myth,
the loss is his phallus, which was cut off by Typhon and never recovered.
And finally, because that original precious thing is lost, the word, or the phallus, a sacred substitution has to be made in both stories. A substitute word for Hiram and a substitute consecrated phallus for Osiris.
The entire purpose of the Osiris myth was to secure immortality and the generative ability to draw forth life, both on earth and in the divine realm. The substitute signifies the necessary compromise in their quest for eternal life.
So this conclusion isn't just our interpretation. High-ranking Masonic authorities actually confirm this.
They do. They state that this ceremony is a myth and that it is thoroughly Egyptian, predating the Age of Solomon by more than 1,000 years.
So the core climactic moment of every Master Mason's journey is a ritualistic revival of an ancient Egyptian mystery religion. It's centered on the sun god Osiris, the god of the dead, fertility, and rebirth, just adapted to fit a narrative involving Solomon's temple.
The connection is too profound to ignore, and the confession from within the organization is absolute. They are literally performing sun worship in the guise of a construction allegory.
Okay, based on the documented parallels and the confessions from Masonic scholars themselves, we have to apply the truth meter here. How plausible is the claim that Masonry is built on a documented, ancient, pagan mystery religion?
I'd rate this 90% plausible. And the only reason it isn't 100% is that some Masons are simply, unaware of their own source material. But the organization's foundational ritual rests upon the documented mythology of Osiris, confirming that occult, pagan, and syncretistic nature that's reserved for the adepts.
Let's pivot now to the modern ties and the real-world implications of this highly exclusive, secrecy-bound system. The internal language they use to categorize the world outside the lodge is incredibly revealing. They refer to us, to non-Masons, including their own families, as the profane.
The term profane persons is used to define all non-Masons. The term itself is derived from the Latin profanus, which means before or outside the temple, but the implication goes so much further than just geography.
And our sources clearly detail the philosophical meaning they attach to this term.
Yes. Profane means not holy, not clean, debased, and unworthy. A thing to be avoided, for it would contaminate the holy and clean ones.
Just think about the psychological consequence of internalizing that doctrine. If you are a Mason, you are being taught that your wife, your children, your parents, unless they're also initiated, are debased, unclean contaminants.
It creates unnecessary alienation. It reinforces the primacy of the lodge and the brotherhood over even the most sacred family relationships. Your allegiance shifts entirely inward.
And this exclusivity leads directly to the systematic effort to exclude Christian doctrine from the lodge, what our source defines as a direct and deliberate attack on the gospel itself. I mean, they can't claim a Christian foundation and also be truly universal and occult.
It's a systemic exclusion designed to achieve what they call universality, meaning their generic prayers have to appeal to a Muslim, a Hindu, a Buddhist, or a deist, and the rules are absolute.
What are the rules?
The name of Jesus Christ is strictly forbidden in a well-ordered lodge. Praying in his name is a serious offense that can lead to the lodge being closed down and its charter being revoked.
And this effort is meticulous. When they use New Testament scriptures in their rituals, any part that includes the name or the divinity of Jesus Christ is deliberately omitted.
They surgically remove the divinity and the unique claims of Christ just to make the doctrine palatable to any religion.
And this results in a doctrine of salvation by works, which is in complete opposition to the Christian concept of salvation by grace through faith.
Yes. Masonry teaches that salvation depends on achieving a virtuous life to redeem yourself. They systematically reduce Jesus to just one of many exemplars, no greater than Buddha, Muhammad, or Confucius. They deny his divinity entirely.
And the culmination of this denial of Christ is found in the climactic ritual of the 18th degree of the Scottish Rite, the Rose Croix degree, which the source describes in chilling detail as the Black Communion.
This is the moment they ritually extinguish the life of Jesus.
Describe the ceremony.
It's steeped in this heavy, oppressive gloom. It's performed in darkness with the members cloaked in long, solid black robes, their faces almost completely concealed in hoods. The mood is solemn, and it's presented as a perverse commemoration of Jesus' death.
And the ceremony demands a specific declaration from the wise master who's presiding.
He has to declare that they meet to commemorate the death of their most wise and perfect master, but, and this is the key part, explicitly, not as inspired or divine, for this is not for us to decide, but as at least the greatest of the apostles of mankind.
So that declaration keeps the ritual within their pluralistic framework, while still focusing entirely on the event of Christ's suffering.
Exactly. It includes a communion of bread and wine, but because it's Christless and performed in this dark, cloaked setting, the source calls it a strange black mass.
And the ultimate climax of the ceremony involves a large menorah candlestick with 7 candles burning.
Right, representing various aspects of the master's life. The officers go around and extinguish the candles one by one. The final center candle represents the life of Jesus.
And what happens to that last candle?
The master arises sadly and extinguishes the last flame, leaving the entire room in deep, silent darkness. The sequence is a powerful ritualistic performance that dramatizes the snuffing out of Jesus' life and light, concluding the scene with the stillness of death.
The only word, as our source notes, to accurately describe the entire event is black.
And this is the light they ultimately seek to define, one that requires the deliberate exclusion of divine truth.
So after years of paying dues, traveling, climbing through all these degrees, and all the while being told you're on this grand quest for light, what happens when the seeker finally reaches the pinnacle, the 32nd degree, having endured all of these revelations?
This is the final, and frankly perhaps the cruelest psychological deception of all. After the seeker gives his big climactic lecture, the wise master delivers this devastating news.
Which is?
That the light is still obscured. He's told that he has reached the mountain peak of Masonic instruction, but that peak is covered with clouds and mists.
So the 32nd degree isn't the final destination after all?
Not even close. The lecture tells the seeker that he must now press on and find the light for yourself, even though he still has no idea what that ultimate destination even is. The organization has ensured the search is eternal.
It's an unsustainable, never-ending quest.
The system is designed to hook the member by promising knowledge and self-improvement, but it makes sure that the light remains permanently out of reach. The seeker remains ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth.
Which makes him a lifelong victim of a profit-driven system that demands perpetual searching and, of course, perpetual dues payments.
It's the ultimate bait and switch. The light is promised, but what's delivered is a system of perpetual binding loyalty to an organization that is rooted in ancient paganism, occultism, and pure deception.
Let's synthesize all of these bombshell truths in a rapid-fire summary.
Okay.
Number 1. Masonry deliberately misleads its rank-and-file members about its true occult foundation. It claims the Kabbalah, not the Bible, is its true source of light, and it reserves the actual meanings for the adepts.
2. The oaths bind members to unbreakable secrecy using threats of grotesque medieval violence like having your body severed and your ashes scattered, and it compels members to commit perjury to protect fellow Masons.
3. Core symbols like the square, the compass, the letter G, and the Tau cross all hide profound phallic and sun worship doctrines, reinforcing ancient fertility cult beliefs for the elite while the others remain ignorant.
And 4. The organization requires the systematic exclusion and denial of Jesus Christ's divinity to achieve its universality. And it practices the dramatic Black Communion ritual to commemorate the symbolic snuffing out of his life.
The ultimate betrayal of this system is that it sells you the promise of light while delivering perpetual darkness and financial obligation. Our source, upon finally realizing the entire structure was built on lies, after leaving the temple for the very last time, he captured the deception perfectly in a single thought.
A moment of shattering clarity. He realized, it isn't ancient, it isn't Scottish, it isn't free, and it isn't right.
This structure of deception, promising profound truth but delivering institutional loyalty and occult bondage, is a classic example of esoteric control operating right out in the open.
And so the real question for you to consider is this. If an organization requires you to swear an oath to commit perjury and deliberately lie about its own processes and at the same time teaches you that your own family is profane, what is the true cost of belonging to that brotherhood?
For the full, uncensored deep dive into the deadly deception and the detailed analysis of all the source material, subscribe to the official urban.substack.com. Read this discussion on X with hashtag UrbanOdysseyTruth. What's your take? Reply to @official or to me, Banus. We'll see you next time as we continue to unpack the truth that lies just beneath the surface.